So fantastic. So for those of you that are new today, I think most of us have been here before, but I'm Melissa. I'm with Caregiver Wellness Retreat. We started out as an in-person day-long free retreats for caregivers of Alzheimer's and other dementia more than 7 years ago. And with COVID, we've morphed like everyone else online. So I'm super grateful for this platform because you still get to be at home and probably you're doing dual and many things while you're doing this all at once. So I truly appreciate and honor your time that you've kind of carved out for this. And if you, as you know, you've gotten emails, so the other sessions are also available to you on the YouTube channel for the Santa Fe Library, which is really great. But our website as well, Caregiver Wellness Retreat, has a lot of online resources in addition to many sessions just like this one, with not just me. So I host a lot of various guests, and we also have a podcast as well. So I'm hoping that you'll find a wealth of resources there, and it's caregiverwellnessretreat.com. So today, and I'm going to go ahead and share my, before I do that, I will say we have Nicolette Ketchum here today, and she is really an amazing human, and she has this incredible guide that I'll share with you toward the end of our session today, where we'll talk about various resources that are available specific to Northern New Mexico and our area. So I'm super excited about that. And thank you, Nicolette, for taking time today, and also being a willing participant in mindfulness. So as I share my screen, I know that if you've been here before, you know that we've talked about mindfulness quite a bit, and that's really the basis of a lot of the information that I provide, and I use that as a backdrop for sharing with you, because it's truly one of the simplest techniques that there is for gaining these inner resources that we need to essentially cope and function and focus. And so I feel like this is a gift and an opportunity for us to gather together and be able to practice these skills together. So I'll go back and forth between my screen and some very practical exercises that we'll do together. So similar format to previous weeks. Priya Parker, if you are not familiar with her, and I'm going to throw out a bunch of books at you today because, you know, this is the Santa Fe Library. This is one of my favorite books. It's called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. And if you are someone, especially, I know someone mentioned this, we popped on here, that you're interested in starting a support group, this is really one of the most beautiful books. And I also follow her on Instagram, and she always does really thoughtful and inspiring posts, as well as a newsletter talking about the craft and the art of why we bring people together and why it's critical to have an intention and to have a welcoming for all of us to be here together. It's not just, for me, at the heart of it, it really isn't just the mindfulness skills. It's at the heart of what our topic is today, which is simply connection. And it is, and we'll talk about needs and values a little bit later, it's probably my top. I have been in this place of isolation, and I don't know about you, but I flipped my life upside down when COVID happened. I completely took one career and shifted and went back to school. And then I also had family crisis. And I mean, you know, I think many of us have similar stories of just layers upon layers of different things. One thing that I have noticed is the depth of connection to myself is greater, even though my circle of connection is smaller. And so I have found that the quality of friendships and the quality of relationships that I have clung to have deepened. They've become this real foundation. And most importantly, the foundation to myself has strengthened. And that, if I could look at, you know, I don't mean to silver lining it, but if I could do any of that, that would be it for me. This power of connection, if we use it, if we allow ourselves to let it be a resource for us. And this is so beautiful, this definition of connection. And I'll just move this across here. Power of connection. Our connection to others is only as powerful and deep as our connection to ourselves. I'll say that again. Our connections to others is only as powerful and deep as our connection to ourselves. And that lets me circle back to our whole idea of pulling in these mindfulness tools we've talked about in the benefits in prior weeks of cultivating a sense of awareness intentionally. So you're purposely paying attention in the present moment without the judgment. It is not easy. It is definitely not an easy task to cultivate. And so I think that, and I was sharing this with a friend, and I know I've repeated this many times together, but we practice these skills and these tools so that when things get really hard, so when the crisis happens, we've actually already implemented it. We already have some of these in our back pocket that we can pull out and we can utilize if we just listen, but don't integrate. That isn't a practice. Listening plus action will give you that result. And when you repeat it over time, it becomes that pattern in your body. And that's what's really important about it, is that mindfulness isn't being without thought. It's not the absence of things. It's our ability to take that and utilize whatever mindfulness skill really makes sense for you. And there's so many different ones in the bucket that you can choose from, so that you can hit the pause button and then you have agency to choose your response. Without the pause, you're typically reacting. And I hope that the practice has taken place so the reaction, right, is peaceful. The reaction is that compassion or self-compassion. And boy, that takes practice. So I love this cartoon. I'll share it with you. Just in isolation, I can so relate to this. Then one tree says to another, "You want to hang out again tomorrow?" Sounds good. I think it's easier to make friends when you are a tree. I think some of us could probably relate to this in terms of family or family connections as well. Sometimes it's so challenging when family isn't gelling, when we're not connecting, when friendships wane or dissipate just due to location and isolation. It's a lot easier when location is easier as well. So, but sometimes there are individuals in our lives that have no choice, the ones that are rooted right next to us. So how do we cultivate stronger connection and relationship with them? So the components of connection: open-mindedness, curiosity, which is a key component to mindfulness, empathy, also a key component, and flexibility. So we'll cover just some gentle examples of each one of these, and we'll actually begin with just a really short mindfulness exercise. So however you are is perfect. If you have access to arms and legs, I do acknowledge we all have different accessibility, and that's not a problem. Just listening and attuning and adjusting instructions however it makes sense for you and what's happening in your body today. So I prefer to have both my feet connected on the ground. It really gives me a sense of presence. It also is very calming for me. When I can actually feel what's underneath me, I have a stronger sense of safety and a greater depth of where I am in the room. And the other thing that I do is I'll just softly take a look around in my surroundings. So I might, just gently look around right and left, what's in front of me. And that way I have a sense of where I am in the space, which signals to my nervous system through using my eyes that I'm safe in this space. And so that's another really quick tool. And you probably already do it and you don't even know you do it. You know, you might be in a public area or even a grocery store or a busy place, and you're automatically, without even realizing, scanning and making sure you feel safe there. It's a really normal, natural nervous system response. So anytime you start to feel sensations of that, like anxiety is rising or an unease is rising, those are often times we really need to pay attention to those signals because our body is telling us something. And if we don't pause and listen, could be a lot of different things. It could be, you know, an anticipation of a communication, but it could also be the environmental space as well. So finding your 2 feet on the ground, exhale and let your shoulders soften. So as much as you can, separate your teeth so that you've got a little space in your jaw, and allow yourself to either sigh again or swallow. And you can have your eyes open or close. I'm just going to soften my eyes. So I take out that visual stimulation, but you can always just have a low gaze. So if you took a moment to swallow, just notice how much softer perhaps your throat feels, or that maybe there's a new connection there where if you were feeling disconnected from the throat and the chest. And very slowly let your attention rise right at the edge of the nose so you can feel the cold air come in through the edge. And as you exhale, you can feel the warm air. Good. Cold and warm. So just focusing for a moment on temperature. Now slowly shift your attention and focus on the quality of your breathing. So does that breath feel long or short? Rigid or smooth? Global, round. Can you feel all of your torso expand as if it were a vessel, or does it feel very linear, up and down? And now go a little bit deeper and notice maybe what you're sensing in your body today. Is there tension? Is there tightness? Is there a little ache or a pain signal? Notice which parts of your body that feel quiescent or maybe nothing. Sometimes the absence of pain, if you normally have chronic pain, is something to pay attention to. Now begin to imagine that your body is like this vessel. So an empty vessel or vase. And if you were to gently pour water in, and the water is symbolic to your breath, so there's just a breath in, and imagine how water takes up the entire volume of the vase, that your breath takes up the volume of your torso. And then as you exhale, imagine watching the breath leave the body in this gentle wisp. And then breathe in again. It fills the fullness of that volume of breath, just fills the body. And as you exhale, it's like you're watching just this little wisp of air or wind. And one more time. And now check back in. Notice again those gentle qualities. You might notice temperature if that resonated with you. Quality of breath. And then any sensations that were underneath that. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So take a moment to just kind of check in with yourself with that short exercise. I mean, that was only a couple of minutes, and the key components to that were external environment integrating with what's going on inside. And now that you've opened your eyes, another really important part of that process is, can I still feel that sense of whatever it is you felt, whether it was spaciousness or calm or ease? Can I still feel that when I look around the room? When I open my eyes? Can I keep that sensation of peace or calm or ease and still be in my environment? So that's part of the practice. How do we be in a really challenging, stormy situation, but what's happening on the inside, you're in charge of? You can shift, you can change. You cannot change the stormy wind outside. I wish I had control of the Santa Fe wind today and yesterday, but I don't. But I can control my emotional response to it. I control what I sense and what I feel inside. So it doesn't matter what's happening outside. I have that choice. So I'll go back to my screen. Feel free to type in the chat, or if you have a particular experience or question, you can always unmute and feel free to share. Ooh, here's a biggie. Feel free to share in the chat box. How open-minded are you on a scale of 1 to 10? 1, not at all. Closed. In fact, I'd be surprised if you're here if you're a 1. So 10, very open. Maybe you're one of the ones who've turned off your phone. You're really focused. You're fully in with both feet. So kind of take a little gauge of how you are. If you want to, you can add to the chat box what your number is or where you feel like you are at this moment on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm curious. Ooh, we're getting some pretty high numbers today. Awesome. 8, 7, 8, 10. Okay. 9. Excellent. And so open-mindedness, I love this particular definition. It's welcoming new ideas, arguments, and information you don't typically align with. Ouch. So welcoming new ideas, even arguments and information that you do not typically align with. I'm going to share another book. There's a great one by Julia Galef. It's called The Scout Mindset. And she talks about these 2 different types, whether you're a soldier, someone who's prone to defending your viewpoint at all cost. Like you are absolutely, like you're an expert on the subject, you know that you're right. Or a scout mindset, which is spurred by curiosity. In other words, you're a bit more like a reed in the wind. You can bend and be adaptable. So what do you most yearn for? Do you yearn to defend your beliefs, or do you yearn to see the world as clearly as you possibly can? I love, there's a Sanskrit word, vidya. Avidya means without clarity. Vidya means to have a sense of clarity. And that is one of the results or benefits of a mindfulness practice. In other words, being able to hit pause lets you step back and view it, where if you don't hit the pause or reaction is your normal go-to, there isn't that ability to have more clarity. And what isn't better when there's a little bit of clarity in the situation, when there's curiosity and openness. When we can ask even those questions to ourselves is when we can turn the tables and be curious about others. If we're closed to our own experience, it's really hard to be curious about others, unless we're really good at deflecting and we just want to ask questions for question's sake. But that's typically not the case. Oh, curiosity. So it's marked by a desire to investigate and learn, inquisitive interest in others' concerns. Curiosity is one of my favorite words. How instead of, again, that whole soldier versus scout mindset, how can we begin to, instead of assuming folks are out to ruin our day by cutting in front of us and, when we're driving, or that's sort of a famous one. Particular individual, and they say, "What are they thinking? I can't believe they would." And I'm like, who knows what's happening in their life? Maybe they're late for work. Maybe they're, so I'm always thinking about, well, I'm really curious. They must be really in need of getting somewhere quickly. And if we can have those pauses in order to assume the best in their intentions instead of assuming the worst, I bet you $1 million that the person isn't thinking about me at all. Not at all. And as they drive off, they don't even have another thought about it. And so who's spinning their wheels about it? Pun intended. Yeah. So I'm the one that's harmed by continuously reflecting on it, right? Instead of just being open-minded and curious of, oh, they must really need to get there quickly. We'll do another mindfulness exercise. This is, if you're familiar and being from Santa Fe, you probably are, Joan Halifax. I love this particular meditation. It's called Strong Back, Soft Heart. And so we'll, again, you can take your gaze off. Anytime we do these experiential exercises, feel free to change your position, your place. You can even lean back if you feel like being upright is too much, or you can walk around and listen. So remember that just because we do an exercise, it doesn't mean you always have to be sitting up straight to do it. There are many ways or many forms that your body can take. So if you can, though, take your eyes off the computer. You can either close them or find something beautiful to look at, or take a low gaze, whatever helps you focus and sort of take that visual sensation out. And then tune back into this sense of easy patterning in the breath. So there's no forcing. It's normal and natural breathing. You can follow it and be curious about it, or you can just simply notice that you're breathing. Notice your body position, whether you're seated, standing, or moving. Allow yourself to relax into that position. So there's not a rigidity to it. It's as if you were seated, it's as if the spine climbs out of the pelvis in this natural ascension rather than a rigidity. In other words, you could move or shrug your shoulders as you need to alleviate any discomfort. You have that agency. As you shift that attention to the spine, can you do so without a sense of judgment? So there's no need to evaluate how the spine is. The back is a simple metaphor for how and our capacity to hold difficulties or challenging situations. I often think of it as this backpack that I wear often of responsibilities, my strengths, the things that I must do, or the things that are needs in my life. I have a strong back. So the ability to be present with whatever's happening in that moment, in that given moment. Strong back. You can breathe in that sense of energy and strength. And as you exhale, imagine that you're releasing tension, judgment, weight, burden. Breathing that strength, breathing out, and releasing what you really don't need to grasp. Silently say, strong back. And as we shift our attention to the front, there's this sense of equanimity that we're building. It's a sense of okayness, being okay with what is. And to do that requires vulnerability or a soft front. So shifting your attention to your chest, noticing the tender open space that is available to you. Notice if there's any warmth just by focusing on the front of the chest. You can also put just a soft hand across the chest if that makes sense for you to connect further to it. Notice if there's any sense of care or tenderness. And this care would be what you extend to others in the world. And the tenderness is what we show ourselves. As you notice sensations, you can simply shift. Strong back, soft front. This equanimous okayness, this strength that you uphold in the back, and this idea of compassion that you present through an open heart. Strong back, soft front. You'll just take a few more breaths. The easiest way that I remember this meditation is I just check in with myself. What am I feeling in my body? Do I need to move or wiggle? I notice the strength that I have in my back, that sense of equanimity, being okay with what is, not fighting with reality. And the front, soft front, compassion, tenderness. Because we are both. Strong back, soft front. And just allow a gentle exhale for as long as it feels comfortable. And when you're ready, reintegrating by just blinking the eyes open and allowing yourself to become aware of your surroundings. So I'm curious how that was for you, if that, how many of you have done that particular meditation before. But it's a powerful one for me. I'm such a visual person, so it always comes back to that. I love it. Somebody put in the chat box, be curious, not judgmental, via Ted Lasso. I'm convinced that Ted Lasso is sort of the Mr. Rogers of our day, but that's just me. All right. Okay. So many of you have probably seen this before, and if you have not, you're in for a treat. If you have, you'll listen carefully for any new nuances. Of course, you know, I always like to refer to Brene Brown as my pretend BFF. I'm sure she feels the same way about me since I quote her so often. Just kidding. In her latest book, I think I mentioned it a few times, Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. It is like a manual for life. You can see all my sticky notes in it. I can't recommend it highly enough. But we'll take just a couple minutes to watch this really brief discussion on empathy, which is our next quality of connection. Feel free to let me know. Thumbs up.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So she summarizes that, and I hope everyone was able to hear that okay. Is that okay? Empathy is feeling with people. If there was something else that you got from that you want to either unmute or share in the chat box, feel free to do that. It's powerful to think about the difference between sympathy and empathy. And I think we often interchange those words, and empathy has that deeper, more connective resonance, which allows us to actually be with them in their suffering. One of the most beautiful examples of being with someone in grief is not needing to say a word. Can I just come and sit with you? Can I sit beside you and just let's have a cup of tea? You don't need to fill the silence. You don't need to have wise words, because it really isn't anything when someone's experiencing grief and loss, because it is their experience. So this idea of being with, and it's different. There's a big buzzword right now about being an empath and really taking on other people's emotions. That's different. If you're finding that's you, go back to session on boundaries. Being able to hold this sort of non-permeable space where you are you and the other person is the other person, but you can still sit together and be with. That's the idea or sense of companioning, which is so beautiful. Ooh, okay, so we're going to do just a quick little exercise together. When you're reflecting on empathy, again, we talked about almost impossible to connect with another person if we're not connected to ourselves. Have you ever been with someone who tries to connect with you and you're like, you're not, are you here? They're focused on their agenda, or they're focused on whatever just happened on the phone for them. Their sense of presence is lacking, and it's palatable. When you're connected to yourself, it's easier to be connected to others. So in order to do that, we have that sense of open-mindedness, that curiosity, all towards self. So if we want our connections with others to be better, are these things resonating for us? So I know many of us are caregivers, and for us to showcase these qualities of caregiving for others, they really have to be cultivated, and it's a work in progress, right? So beginning with self-empathy. What am I seeing or hearing that's stimulating me? So when I'm reflecting on self-empathy and I'm triggered by something, what am I triggered by? And it could be something that sparks joy or warmth in me, but it also could be something that is upsetting or maybe even fairly neutral. But can I recognize it? What's coming up out of that? What am I thinking? What are the thought patterns? What's ruminating that's helping me move toward self-empathy? Or am I in this loop pattern that isn't helping me? What am I noticing and feeling in the body? And to do that, that very first exercise that we did is paying attention to specific sensations in the body. It gives us a lot of cues and information of what we need to do next. What am I needing? And what am I requesting to address with those needs? And this is a bit convoluted here. So hopefully you don't have to lean in too close. I have to wear glasses these days. But this is a list of needs that I've compiled. And there's actually, if you Google, there's a great values list that Brene Brown put out, similar but different. So needs are universal. We all as a human have these needs. Values are also a need, but values tend to cull down to one or two that are most important, and then we can kind of ladder or list all those other needs underneath those really specific values. So when we think about needs, there are basic Maslow's hierarchy, are we having food and safety and warmth, connection, and then it moves from there. So as you're glancing at this list, if there's one or two that really stand out to you, for me, it's community. It's that sense of belonging and having more in-depth connection with others. For you, it might be having a sense of self or dignity. Especially as caregivers, we want to treat the people we care for with a sense of dignity and respect, and we want it reciprocated. So just thinking about what needs are most important to you are really important as we tie that into empathy. If those basic universal needs are not met, it's very difficult to express and receive empathy and compassion. Whew. So you can really think about this. So that's toward ourselves. And then as we're with others, we can use the same litmus test. What are they seeing or hearing? What's stimulating them? What are their feelings? What are they needing, and what needs need to be addressed? Because this becomes then a highway in which we meet in the middle for needs. Sometimes the other person's needs rise higher because maybe we're more resourced emotionally. And maybe when our resources are depleted, our needs are a little higher, and the other person rises to help that. And that is the essence of that connection and community, where we're constantly being able to filter and adjust and accommodate. And last here, we want to be able to check in, and let's just do this little check-in with ourselves here. And you can have your eyes open or closed and allow yourself to just exhale. So right in this moment, let's just take this as present moment awareness. Am I centered, open, and relaxed? Or am I feeling stressed, scared, or angry? Just noticing, not judging, just noticing what pops up for us. Am I curious about connecting? Or am I wanting to be right? Am I knowing that I don't have all the answers? Or am I wanting to get it my way? And am I open to any outcome that addresses all of these needs? Or am I close to an outcome? Just notice if there's a particular something that maybe is still resonating with you, and you can jot that emotion, sensation, or experience down. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll make a date with it. If I notice that, the other day for me, it felt the weight of the world, this responsibility toward different family members. And I decided to just have tea with it. Notice what it felt like, what it was asking of me, and then what I needed to do about it. And it helped me to revisit a conversation, to ask for help. It was really powerful. So instead of ignoring it, I asked, what is it that needs to have happen here? Oh, Brene, I am here to get it right, not be right. I am here to get it right, not to be right. So it really circles back to this whole idea of it being a practice. Our last point, can you get a copy of this? Sure, Nicolette, I can send it to you, and I'll also send it to Jessica and see if she'll send it out in the email follow-up as well. Our last point is flexibility, and it's this, for me, it's two things. It's when I come upon a situation, maybe you can imagine just like walking down a path and it splits off in two. Neither situation is right or wrong, but I need to make a choice. I need to make a decision. So I go down one, and then I can backtrack if I need to, but I've made the choice. So it allows me to kind of keep going forward. Flexibility versus stagnation. It's kind of like imagining trying to do life on a stationary bike. you're not going to go anywhere. And it's really hard to balance on a bike not moving. So this forward moving, this momentum allows us to practice adaptability and flexibility. So today I've invited Nicolette to join us. She has the Hummingbird Cafe, and she is truly a lovely and amazing individual. And I asked her to share with you a couple of her top resources. And while you start the discussion about this, I'm actually going to put I've got your Linktree link, and I'm going to put that into the chat box. And then I also have her extensive full resource list, unless you want to disseminate it another way. Is it okay if I put the link in the chat? Sure. Okay. So I'll do that. So you can click on both those links and then you can look at them later. So they're available to you. Yeah, good. So I saw you unmuted. I'd love for you to share with us kind of your top resources. And if anyone has any particular questions about resources, I'll encourage you to put that in the chat, and then Nicolette can add to that.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, I wanted to highlight a few of the resources that are in the resource guide that really can help build connections with others who may be in similar situations. And I'm not sure if you're all aware of the Alzheimer's Cafe that is in Santa Fe. They are resuming their in-person gatherings at the Children's Museum the second Wednesday of each month, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m., I believe. And Dr. Yuta Lockvig coordinates that cafe. And then looking on the Memory Cafe directory, which lists all memory cafes throughout the world, it also lists at the Universalist Church that David Davis, is he still coordinating that, Melissa? Is that still up?
Yeah, he sure is. If you go to the Memory Care Alliance, and I think I put that in the chat, but might have been before some of you came, so I'll put it in the chat box again. If you just get on his email list, he has a number of different, he has Prepare to Care, he's got the other groups that are meetings. He also has a professional care group meeting as well. And those are all at no cost. And so you can click on that, and that's in the chat box as well. And those are specific to dementia. So.
And then the Hummingbird Memory Cafe is online, and we meet the second Wednesday of each month, also 2 to 3 p.m. And we have themes for each of our cafes that we build our conversations around and our engagement. So yesterday our theme was wisdom. So we shared wisdom that we had gleaned from others and wisdom that we had gleaned through our lived experiences. And then a tapestry of words was created. So that'll be posted on the Facebook page on Sunday. And every Sunday there's a weekly update. So if you look at Facebook, so it's Hummingbird Memory Cafe, and the Hummingbird Memory part is important because there are a lot of Hummingbird cafes out there. So Hummingbird Memory Cafe, there's a Facebook page, Instagram page, and we list useful information, not just for even like locally in New Mexico, but internationally. How are people engaging in conversations around living well with dementia and finding joy in their journey? There's also New Mexico Caregivers Coalition that's in the resource guide as well. And then if you are someone that's living with dementia, there are a lot of organizations that are just special for those conversations and advocacy. A lot of advocates of people who are living with dementia come out of the Dementia Action Alliance, Dementia Mentors, and one more, Dementia Alliance International. And again, these are listed in that resource guide under social opportunities. There's a category just for that. There's also a Memory Cafe directory, as I mentioned. And then there's Dementia Possibilities, which is a YouTube channel based on a conference that we had last year, with a lot of creativity. When you think about art kind of creativity, but other creativity too, about solving problems, everyday things that may come up when we're living with dementia, either as the person diagnosed with dementia or a caregiver. So that's Dementia Possibilities. It's a YouTube channel, and you'll see the whole week was recorded of the engagements that we had with different professionals mainly in the Santa Fe community, but some of us outside the Santa Fe community were engaged as well. So I think those are my top resources I would recommend for the Santa Fe community.
Nice. I'll open it up to anyone that's got maybe specific questions about resources. We could also chat briefly about any of the topics that we covered today on connection. If again, in the chat box, there is the top link that I put, the link tree, Hummingbird Memory Cafe. It's got all those plus extra things. The second link I have there is the Hazine link, and that's her entire comprehensive resource guide. She's got everything in there, not just for dementia, but resources for aging specifically to that, health resources. It's really comprehensive, so well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if you have a resource that we haven't mentioned that's been really helpful for you, I would encourage you to maybe share that in the chat box. And one more time, I'll put our Caregiver Wellness Retreat on there as well. Y'all are so quiet today. This is our last session together. And as I mentioned last week, I hope we'll do something again in the future with the Santa Fe Public Library. But if you want to stay connected to me, you would go to Caregiver Wellness. Oops, I didn't put the full address, did I? That's what I get for typing too quickly. It's Caregiver Wellness Retreat. And I've got a monthly series that I do as well. So